Okay, this is the initial meeting of the Climate Resilience Committee. We're going to be addressing order number 21-100-8299. So basically, next slide, please, if you can. Hit next one more time. There we go. Pardon for the technical difficulties here. So basic rough agenda. The intent is kind of talk about what the issues are. There's a lot that can be covered within this topic. So going to start with just the committee members speaking and addressing what their concerns are, what they think the Climate Resiliency Committee should address. Then I'm giving the opportunity for other council members to speak as well. We also have Sean Duvall and Priscilla Ryder to speak as well, and I appreciate for them showing up. We will talk about the scope and rules in a follow-on meeting. They'll be scheduled probably sometime next month. If any councilor has any questions, raise their hand. I'll acknowledge them. They can ask the questions. But this is really about, how serious we take climate change within the city and within the council. Because, this is an old phrase, think global, act local. And acting local really starts with municipality action. So I think that's important. Next slide, please. So hit next one more time. And keep on going. So definition, I found this definition online for the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions. Climate resilience, and I'm going to read it now in case people can't read it either online or here. Climate resilience is the ability to anticipate, prepare for, and respond to hazardous events, trends, or disturbances related to climate. Improving climate resilience involves assessing how climate change will create new or alter current climate-related risks and taking steps to better cope with these risks. There has been a history within the city as far as identifying and addressing climate and the environment. The Conservation Commission has been around for quite a long time, as the previous president, Ed Clancy, can remind us about. There's been sustainability plans for 2008 as well as 2020. So, there's also open space plans and other actions and plannings that we've done already. Next slide. Next step. City has jurisdiction over housing and building stock. I think this is really what I see as the biggest issue we can confront. A third of emissions in the Northeast is building and housing stock. It's furnaces, and it's mostly being done during the winter. And everything that we can do to basically reduce or, transition, furnaces from oil or gas to heat pumps, as an example, it would be a big win in cleaning the air of our city as well as reducing the impact of climate change. Stretch codes, there's a lot of municipalities now supporting stretch codes. I think we might need to look into that. What I found interesting is that the latest housing proposals that have come to the city were highly energy efficient and we're not using fossil fuels. And we made note of that during their review, and I think that's hopefully a good trend we see going forward. But the issue basically is that the housing stock that we have, the building housing stock we have, pretty constantly emits carbon dioxide either through furnaces or pellet stove or wood stoves or something like that. Next, trash and recycling is going up in price, and recycling is moving away from single stream. Back up if you can, thank you, no problem. Probably the one question we have, and I'm throwing this up and we don't need to talk about it today, but paper and cardboard are very valuable. The problem is when they get introduced to the single stream, they get contaminated. And we're making a lot of money just collecting cardboard at the transfer station. And if there's another way to take that to another level, I think there'd be a big benefit to that. And I think the key to this is as we look into what can be done, at the end of the day, this is something that has to have scientific and financial soundness. And if you do it right, not only are you protecting and saving the environment, you're saving money, for the municipality and for the people of the community. Next. So as far as success stories goes, with solar and electric and transportation, next. Municipal aggregation is 100% renewable. Now, The issue basically is it's where we're purchasing our energy from is literally not connected to the Northeast grid. So there's an issue with that, but hopefully as the wind turbines start being built up off the coast, we can take advantage of that. We got solar on our schools, which is a huge win. Department of Public Works has a bunch of electric vehicles, and I give them great credit for that. The police have gotten 4 hybrid interceptors, and they're pleasantly surprised with those. We also have introduced solar overlay districts, so we know if there's an opportunity to do a large-scale solar deployment within the city, we know the mechanism to do it, and we're right now kind of in the process of trying to get one at the old landfill on Bolton Street. Smart buildings is basically more efficient use of energy and electricity. There's a lot of heat pumps. What I understand is that these heating systems and cooling systems that are in the chambers is actually heat pumps. So we've got rid of the old school and we got into the new technology. And there's the housing units that we have for public housing or low-income housing are also using heat pumps as well. You know, there's other possibilities. I've always been a big fan of geothermal, even though it's a very expensive proposition. But there's also battery cogeneration for electricity and heat, especially for large facilities. And, you know, there's no place in Marlborough to do wind. You know, we don't have that much wind. We're trying to phase out the carbon-based fuels and, you know, not burning trash and figuring out how our trash basically gets disposed of without being burned. There are some companies that are very forward-thinking in the environmental movement. Ambry, which is off of Brigham Street. It's off of the Brigham Street Industrial Park. That's an MIT spin-off that is doing game-changing technology for storage of energy for utility-grade storage. And I wish them the best of luck, and we should keep an eye on them and do what we can to help them. Sundrum Solar in Hudson has another interesting novel technology where they have mounting systems for solar panels that basically absorb the heat from the solar panels and therefore increase the efficiency of the solar and also gaining energy from the heat. And I think as far as business opportunities go, we need to figure out how to get companies like this, more companies like this coming to Marlborough. These are the type of companies that create good jobs, good paying jobs, and, you know, have real benefit to the environment. And as far as options and ideas, you know, there's a lot of money and proposals that can be sent out there, submit applications for state and federal programs, and our city does an outstanding job already to trying to address that and putting those things in place, and I give the folks great credit for that. You know, there's environmental benefits as far as the reduction of emissions within the city. You know, and the phrase that I keep is basically any renewable energy that we, you know, system that we put in place in the city means there's less imported energy into the community. And at the long run, that creates an energy independence and also creates more stability for us in our energy sources. You know, the question is, to the council is basically, how can the council take an active role when it comes to these issues? You know, if, you know, some of the issues would be, let's say, a betterment or a tip finance, looking at, you know, approaches used in other means for replacing furnaces. You know, that's not something that we can approve ourselves. We need to work through the state with that. I don't see that as, I see that as an IPS issue that can be addressed because we did that with MEDC. So, you know, I think that that's something we can address. And again, it still boils down to reducing the local emissions, increasing the air quality of our city. You know, MEDC has a lot of incentives that are put in place, and, you know, just possibly having MEDC work with businesses and communities to reduce fuel costs and emissions, because, you know, the more a business is, the less energy or fuels a business is using, the more efficient they are and the more effective they are in running their business. It really does impact the bottom line. And it's, you know, working with the local businesses and the large corporate facilities, I think we need to look into somehow to address that. Also, you know, as far as the municipality, I think that we have the opportunity to lead by example as far as optimizing and reducing emissions. There's been a lot done already. We're starting to see electric trucks coming onto the market, not just from Tesla, but from Ford, and GM's on its way. The heavy vehicles are definitely not there yet, but I think they're going to be someday. I think it's more likely that the first heavy vehicles are going to be actually from hybrids versus straight electric. So part of what I wanted to talk about also is the importance of metrics. How do we measure how effective we are in reducing emissions, or how do we, figure out how good we're doing? Just next, thank you. I sent notes from an MIT Sustainability Forum to the committee back in April, and it was part of the Sloan School Business Sustainability Initiative. And the key is you can't improve what you can't measure. And there's lots of talk as far as, how do organizations and groups grow? How does the use of fossil fuels grow? But, it's not, exponential growth doesn't last forever. It's mostly like an X curve. You start small, you start growing big, and then you kind of cap out. But there's issues with, what happens if you go beyond what's possible, and you kind of overshoot. The example that they talked about in the conference was the Irish potato famine, because the Irish are doing real well with potatoes until this blight came in and kind of wiped them out, and they went through, one of the greatest tragedies in Europe. But also, company Digital Equipment Corporation, they had 23 buildings in Marlborough, and we were getting a lot of our tax base from that. And when DEC went down, we had to transition away from that. So that's also an issue of overshoot, because at one point, Digital Equipment Corporation was printing money. The profit that those guys were making were amazing. But I think it's important to pick the metrics, but you got to be careful, because the metrics can come back and haunt you. The triple bottom line was something that was introduced 30 years ago, where you address a corporation based on 3 dimensions of performance: the social, the environmental, and the financial. And I think that that's also something to keep an eye on. And the catch is if you do your metrics right, it feeds back into the system so you can improve it. So another part that was covered at the MIT Forum, next screen, was donut economics. This was fascinating to examine, because it's really talking about next. Yeah, we're getting there. I hate it when this happens. Yeah, I'll talk about it before the screen. There we go. So the idea basically is, with donut economics, you have this sweet spot, which is, a loop where if you're limited in certain issues and there's a whole bunch of factors involved, if you shorten that, then society and civilization has a hard time to grow and stuff like that. And then you hit this sweet spot and things just all align, the stars align, you can grow and expand your civilization and stuff. And then you got to be careful, because basically, it can grow beyond that and beyond the limits, which you get into the outside, what they call the ecological ceiling. And so you got to keep the society within that donut to basically maintain growth and maintain civilization. So I think that's important to, as we look into things, how to address it. So lastly, and then I'll go to the next committee members. I think the key takeaway is that this committee won't see much delegated from the council, but I think that as part of the discussion, we can talk about issues that we can pose back to the council. The biggest issue, again, which I talked about earlier, is existing and building housing stock emissions. How do we address that? With heat pumps, geothermal, or cogeneration. And cogeneration reduces it, but doesn't eliminate it, but it can still do it. I'm a big fan of best practices, learning what other communities are doing, and using that within our own community, not try to reinvent the wheel. And I think it's critical that we look at this and figure out how we can take action for future generations in Marlborough. So With that, I will move on to the other council members. First, Laura, do you want to say anything?
Yes, sure. Thank you for that. So much as I'm listening to you, we're beyond individual behavioral changes. So what you're talking about are all big systemic changes, and so partnerships really keep coming to mind, and that staying really in tune with what's available at the state level, how is state working with municipalities, and really keep those connections strong and make sure we know what's available to us as we move through these changes, and keeping that eye towards equity, because some of these solutions that come, things that are available, are often available to people with means. So if you're like a homeowner, you can opt to put solar panels on if you're in a location that has enough sunlight, and housing, it really can also address, make more affordable housing. It would be amazing if we could convert homes to be energy neutral, and people don't have electric, have utility bills anymore. Would be amazing savings, but there's not a lot of incentive for an owner to necessarily make that investment, and that's where those partnerships come in. Are there incentives to improve the property value, which also then benefits the people who are renting? And I think about programs like commercial PACE. I mean, what you're talking about, commercial PACE, and there's residential PACE, but there's been some really not a good track record in some of the things that happen with residential PACE programs. But those kind of big, like it's bigger than Marlborough, those big kind of financing plans need to be in place. And I think the state is certainly working hard to look at that, and after passing I'm missing the first word, but the new roadmap bill that was passed this year, it's really looking at how we do this together, because there's a statewide goal of reducing carbon emissions by 45% by 2030. So that's very ambitious, and we're only going to get there if we work together. So I really appreciate you bringing this up, and I would love for us to be, sometimes I hear things, and I do a lot of work on the state level, and I've heard, some officials say, like, well, Massachusetts can't solve climate. No one community, no one state can. We all have to be doing our part. So what can we change in Marlborough, and then if other municipalities make changes as well, that's going to make Massachusetts strong, and as Massachusetts gets strong, then it'll be nationwide and globally. That's the direction we need to be moving in. So I like the idea of this committee being able to think about what are the parameters we should be thinking about when we're thinking about projects. It's, to widen that scope to include what are the environmental impacts. And I just see this position that we have as city councilors as really stewards of this city. And I think I love working with all my colleagues, because I feel like so many things we talk about reflect that. It's not about what's right in this moment. It's what's, we think generations down the road. And so the decisions we make now can't just be, well, it makes economic sense right now, and we'll worry about paying for it later. It has to be the whole, really thinking about all of that together. So those decisions about what are the buildings we're approving right now, and there's been some recent ones that they're really interesting, and not only thinking about the environmental impact, like where the materials come from. So lowering the carbon footprint, like, are we shipping raw materials in from China? like what are the other raw materials that we can be using, and maybe thinking about buildings differently. I don't think the buildings we build today are going to look like what we had at the turn of the century or even 5 years ago. It's just a vastly different world we're living in, and I think people are waking up to, we have to start making some drastic changes. What we're doing, the status quo, is not working. So appreciate the opportunity for this discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Wagner. Councilor Landers, do you have anything to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be very brief, because I know you have a couple invited guest department heads here. I want to say, Councilor Doucette, good presentation, good document. I think somewhere along the line, we could use this as a partial guide. In other words, doing green ink, those are the things that Marlborough's doing now, and I'm not sure what color ink, the things that we should be working on. But I think, Councilor Doucette, this is a good start. And, I don't think we have to rush into things. I think we should have another meeting. By the way, you didn't name the committee members, did you? It's the three of us, or did you?
Yeah, there's three of them. Well, I'm going, did her because she's
No, but you didn't
vice
name
chair,
them, though.
and then
You
you.
didn't name them.
Yes.
I want to make sure people know I'm green, see? But basically, this is a good start, and, you know, we have a long way to go, but this could be a partial guide to what we should be doing, Dave, you know? So I'm going to give you an opportunity to call on some of your department heads that you invited here tonight, and just remember, we have another meeting coming up too, sir.
I understand. So,
That we
before
have to vote on certain matters, that's what
Right,
I'm concerned
yeah.
about.
But I think before we get to the members, but I'll finish with the other counselors. Counselor Perlman, you are counselor at large, so I'll give you the first chance.
Okay, I was going to say, I thought it was because I was next to you, but thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate the presentation and the comments from other members of the committee. I think when I was reading through some of the documents and hearing the feedback from all of you, I'm really thinking about the need for this to be a central focus. So understanding global warming is going to increasingly be something that all communities will have to face and needs to come into all of our decision making, and that there's an urgency behind it. And so a lot of times something's like an afterthought, I think just across the board because of, you know, costs or thinking about what's coming before us, but I think it's something that is impacting people, and I find it right ironic that we're having this meeting during this heat wave, right, and thinking about the cycle of, you know, people using more electricity, contributing to global warming, and then the cycle continuing, and that's just an example of how drastically increased the temperatures are going to be and how that will continue to be an issue. So I think, I guess feedback for the committee would be thinking about what can we do to mitigate what's currently happening and how can we be proactive to prevent things further and be really leaders in the, you know, the green space and really learning from other communities what they're doing that's very innovative. I know there were some specific cities and towns listed in the packet that you gave that are doing really great things that could be adopted by Marlborough. And then, you know, one of the things I found was really interesting was environmentally preferred purchasing, which I thought was really interesting of, you know, how our city resources being spent and what companies are we even buying things just to do our daily functions. And I think that seems like a very easy lift in my mind. And then overall, I would just think, you know, if there are opportunities in the future to engage with residents further, I know there's the upcoming open space plan that's going to be presented and there'll be public feedback opportunities, but I imagine, you know, really being able to see where we want to prioritize would be preferred, and I think really just using the state as a model moving forward would make the most sense. So I'm excited. I'll definitely be continuing to come to the committee's meetings, even though I'm not on the committee, just because this is something I'm very passionate about and really thrilled to see the city taking this on and hope to see it move quickly with some action.
Okay. Councilor Roby, do you have anything to say?
I don't really have anything to add to this. I would just like to make sure that people are aware that Marlborough is a green community currently. I know the documentation that you sent us for a prior mayor is rather antiquated, but I think a lot of it is still valid information. As was mentioned, the governor did sign the new act creating a next generation roadmap, and it does allow I lost my line. A voluntary energy efficient building code for municipalities. So we already have a stretch code in Marlborough. I'm sure that any changes that are in that will be recommended to us to also adopt. So I know you do have the building or the DPW commissioner, and you have Priscilla Ryder here. I don't know if they are going to offer comments tonight, if they have any specific recommendations, but I'm sure that they're both keeping abreast of anything that the state or the federal government is sending down the pike. We are certainly being creative in our energy savings for residents with the document or the blanked on what that's called, the aggregation that we are currently involved in, and I think that that's been a help for the communities. Sometimes it's hard to mandate things for residents. I know when we had our heating system breakdown, it was an old antiquated gas furnace. We looked at options. Replacing it with an energy efficient gas furnace was the cheapest option for us. especially with how our house is currently designed. We don't have any vents, so we basically just replace it. So talking about heat pumps, talking about other things that people can do without maybe savings that the state would give in rebates or any kind of help for people to do that, I think are hard. People are going to get the cheapest that they can in today's market and not really worry about necessarily the climate when they're doing it. So those will be hard to mandate people to do anything. And I know it's a big push even on the governor's part to have us be where we are with net zero emissions by 2050. So good luck with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any mandates per se, but I do see incentives, and I see there's a big difference between those two. Councilor Navin, do you have anything to say?
Thank you, Councilor Doucette, and thank you for scheduling this. I think this is incredibly important. You should be commended. This is a nice presentation, and you highlighted a lot of the important things that Marlborough has done and talked about some of the things that we can do. I certainly don't want to repeat what everyone has said. I also want to give plenty of time for the department heads to speak because I'm very interested to hear what they have to say. But you did highlight, the city has made a tremendous amount of progress, this past decade, and that is great. Councilor Roby mentioned that, Marlborough is a green community, and with that comes quite a bit for the city to come to the table with, including adopting the stretch code that will continue to become more progressive as the state updates their building code. Certain requirements for electric fleets, which is incredibly important, and working to try and make the city a more energy efficient place. And one of the things I would like to hear from, if our department has had the information or something that maybe we can get going forward, is, that program through Department of Energy Resources gives cities and towns the ability to continue to apply for grants. I'd be interested to hear what the city is applying for or what the city would like to apply for in future time to bring money back to kind of help reduce that impact on our residents, to make this process a little bit more palatable. As Councilor Roby mentioned, some of these decisions are difficult. Councilor Wagner mentioned it as well. It's easier for people with better economic means to make some of these more responsible energy decisions. However, we need to make them available for everybody. And some of this comes with the knowledge. So I commend you for working on that. I would encourage the committee, you mentioned how does the committee become more proactive? And we may just be one city, but the state is very progressive on the policies that it is working to adopt. And, whether it's the Department of Energy Protection or DOER, we're trying to promulgate regs, make new rules. I would encourage the committee to work with the mayor, to engage in that dialogue, because there is a lot of benefit that can be had when municipal officials are engaging with the state and letting them know just what we're hearing from our residents and just how we can make the final rule a little bit more, sustainable for our community, and to make sure that what is coming out of Boston is actually going to make sense for Marlborough, and allow Marlborough to adopt these policies and these technologies that are going to help reduce our reliance on our carbon footprint. So again, I commend you for getting this conversation or continuing this conversation, and look forward to hearing from our department heads.
Thank you very much, Councilor Navin. At this point, Priscilla and Sean, if you folks can come up to the well. You're first, Priscilla, so why don't you start?
Okay. And I know you have another meeting coming up, so I'll be really quick. So just to touch on a few things that we have. So we've been working on this since 2008 to 2010. We became a green community. With that comes the stretch code before it became the normal code. So now somebody who buys a house, a brand new house, it has to be, they put air in it and they pressurize it and they see how tight it is and they give it a number so that when you buy a house now, you know what the energy efficiency is. So that's pretty cool. On the city's conservation webpage, there's a sustainability and green communities effort that summarizes the things that we're doing, so I won't go through all of those things. But I also wanted to say that the municipal vulnerability plan that we did a couple years ago, the hazardous mitigation plan that, that the city has, all kind of tie in together because they're all talking about how do we deal with climate change and both physically, how do we change our buildings, and also how do we mitigate it with larger storms, et cetera. And then what I think you had mentioned is that we're doing really well. I mean, I think the mayor had gone to some meeting and he came back and he says, aren't we doing this? Aren't we doing this? Aren't we doing this? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, they're bragging about it. We should be bragging about it. So the city, once the solar panels are on at the school, will have 80% of our electricity, our energy use in all of our city buildings is renewable. So 80%. So and then we'll be working on, as far as the green communities, there is a grant round every year. This year there's two grant rounds. We weren't quite ready in March. We will be ready in September. We are going to be looking, there's 2 schools that have HVAC systems that need to be upgraded that are really antiquated. So we'll be updating those. I think that's going to be the low-hanging fruit for us. We have engaged, I think all of our buildings now, or most of our buildings now have, we've changed all the lighting so that we're changing, that we're way energy efficient with that now, and all of our street lights were converted. So we're doing a lot. We've done a lot, and we still have a lot to do. So on a municipal level, and I don't know if Sean, if you wanted to.
Sure. If I can just quickly expand on the LED lighting conversion projects that we've been doing for various city buildings. So we have 10 projects. We're about halfway through. Just quickly for a sense here, DPW building, Easterly plant, police station, Westerly wastewater treatment plant, senior center, and the high school, middle school, Elder School, and others. And so this has been an endeavor that was started by my predecessor, previous commissioner, and so this was an effort to change out all of the lighting in these buildings with 100% LED lighting. And it's to the tune of about $1.6 million that through the energy savings and various incentives that we get from National Grid, we're able to offset that cost entirely by our energy savings and the reduction in cost in buying the electricity to power these lights. So I think that's a very interesting thing, and this was a program put together by National Grid and various companies that assist cities and towns in doing this work. And at the end of it, it's financed anywhere from 3 years to 5 years, and it's cash flow neutral. So we're able to get, in all sum and in 5 years, all of our lighting upgraded at virtually no cost to the city.
And after that 5 years, the numbers will be reduced to some degree. So that's at least the energy use, whether the cost will be.
And to a great degree too, because also there is reduced maintenance cost when it comes to LEDs. They last a good long time, and it's not the type of lighting that you're used to where you have to change out bulbs and ballasts and things like that. These sometimes will last for 10 years or more without any maintenance. So that helps our staff and overall the maintenance cost.
And then the other 2 things I just wanted to mention, because you had talked about it. One is the tracking system. So through the Green Communities program, there is this MEI, and I don't remember what it stands for, but it's a tracking system that every time we do an upgrade to a building, they compare it to, so apples are being compared to apples, so we know how much we've reduced and what the carbon, what we've eliminated in carbon generation. So that's a tool that we have, and it has lots of, we're just sort of learning about how to use it to its maximum extent because it has some good tools. So those are things that we can use in going forward. The other thing is that the Marlborough Regional Chamber of Commerce has a committee now that's called the Environmental Sustainability and Business Continuity Resiliency Committee, and I've been sitting on that just to hear, and so the business community is also doing kind of this assessment and trying to figure out how to best share technologies and share good practices so that we're all reducing our energy use. So I think, this committee, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing, but there's plenty more to do. So, and there's a lot of communities that are doing stuff, and I think we're all going to learn from each other. And there's some groups that have started to form. In Pepperell, there's a group that's formed up there that's trying to, really have all the, so nobody's reinventing the wheel. So and the city of Cambridge is a huge leader, so we just open their books and follow what they do.
Okay, does any of the counselors have any questions for Priscilla or Sean? Yes, Sam?
Thank you, Chair Doucette. I just had a question. I know in the 2008 report, it mentioned like a sustainability committee, and I know that there are trail volunteers and obviously the Conservation Commission and your work. Was there interest in kind of engaging more of like a volunteer kind of core of residents? I know the education piece is so critical, even when it comes to like compost and recycling, if I think about that. So I was wondering if that's something that's still being under review or not at this time.
Well, in 2010, we did sort of say we would have a committee, and that committee sort of pushed us to be a green community, and then the committee kind of disbanded. So it's not for lack of interest, but, and as I was going through the checklist of 2010, we've been checking off a lot of the markers, but again, that may be something that, whether it's this committee or something more, I don't know.
No, that's good to hear. I was just thinking about, how much there is to do and how there's only so many of you all, and it'd be really great to be able to have others who can help, spread the message even about what the city is doing, which I think a lot of residents aren't aware of. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, there was another climate action plan that was done. What was the latest one, 2020?
No, we haven't updated anything. We just
What was the latest update?
So the latest update was 2011. There was a sort of an action plan, and that's kind of what we've been working on off. But with green communities, we've also been kind of keeping, updating our list of things that need to get done. So
Okay,
that from
so it's like
from
a work in
physical-
progress type thing?
Pardon?
Okay, it's a work in progress type thing.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
just, yes, it's a rolling project for sure.
Okay. Also, just for my own sake, there was a solar panel or solar overlay district that was set for the on
The landfill.
yeah, the landfill on Bolton Street. What's the status of the overlay at this point?
At the landfill. So currently, we have cap repairs that we're doing to the
Okay.
to the landfill. And we're not yet ready to go ahead with any solar projects until we engage in the process with DEP and make those repairs to the cap.
Okay, okay, so basically, we need to ensure that the location is stable and solid with, with updated cap, upgraded cap. Once that's completed, we can put out an RFP to do solar.
If that's the direction the city wants to take.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay. I just wanted clarification with that. How many charging stations does the city have right now?
We have
Yeah.
6, 7, 8, 10 or 11, 12 maybe? 12,
I have-
something.
I have it written down. I don't have it in front of me.
It's something, it's more than 6.
Okay. Well, it's good, it's good that we're getting more, so that's progress. I think it's
The
important. to
private
get-
sector is putting in quite a few too, so
Right.
if you drive around town, there's,
Yeah, and there's some phone apps so you can figure out where the latest charging stations are. So that's all good. Okay. So I know that we have another meeting later tonight, so what I want to do is just kind of put information on the table for people to talk about and discuss. Priscilla, if there's any documents you want to send to the council, please do. That'd be
I'll
part
forward
of
the
this.
links to all the stuff that I
That'd be great.
have so far, and we'll,
Yeah,
go
because
from
that's the
there.
one thing I was missing for this one, so I'd appreciate if you would do that. We'll keep this on the table, so at least postpone. And so looking for a motion to adjourn?
Do we want a motion to move to accept and place on file your report?
Not yet. We'll have another meeting,
Okay.
so. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to move to adjourn then, I guess?
Okay. Motion for adjourn is accepted and seconded. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate it.
Thank you.